Splinter Cell fans have had a lot to rightfully complain about over the years. For starters, the franchise has not received a sequel in well over a decade, there's barely been any news on the Splinter Cell remake since it was announced back in 2021, and then there's publisher Ubisoft's dubious support of the prior games. The first 3 titles received a lackluster remaster back in 2011 that can only be played on the PlayStation 3, the original releases have been delisted on various storefronts with little warning, and the titles that can be purchased on PC storefronts suffer from technical issues stemming from running on modern hardware, DRM, or that were there to begin with and have never been fixed. It's gotten to where pockets of the fan base are starting to take matters into their own hands. And today we're going to highlight one such effort. Created by a small, passionate group of die-hard fans, Enhanced Splinter Cell is a major patch for the PC version that aims to fix various bugs, add numerous gameplay and quality of life improvements, restore cut content, and make the game Steam Deck compatible. While still a work in progress, it is easily the most substantial update the original game, in any form, has received in its 23-year lifespan. And in today's video, I'm going to showcase many of its improvements.
Who's that?
As well as put a call out for help to achieve the full ambitions of this project. So stick around until the end for more on that. Now before we begin, in full transparency, I am friends with one of the developers of this project, who was happy to give me early access to its latest build. I am helping them get the word out on this patch because as a Splinter Cell fan, I think it's really exciting. And with that, it's sneaky time. To access Splinter Cell Enhanced, one only needs to go to its GitHub page to download it, which I have linked down in my description. There are full installation instructions there for both the GOG and Steam versions, as well as instructions on how to uninstall it. After the patch is installed correctly, when you boot up the game and go into the settings menu, there will be a new Enhance tab where you'll be able to toggle and tweak many of the improvements added. We'll be touching on these a little later in the video, but for now I want to focus on the visual enhancements. Before the Enhanced patch, getting Splinter Cell to run on modern PCs wasn't the biggest pain in the ass compared to other games its age, but you definitely had to open the hood up, so to speak, and apply some fixes. You would need the 13AG widescreen fix to run the game at 16:9 resolutions and keep the HUD from stretching, as well as DG Voodoo 2 to fix the shadows that otherwise were unable to render on a modern machine. So an awesome thing this patch does is that it takes these two necessary fixes and packages them together, so you don't have to go through the trouble of applying them yourself. However, that's far from the only upside for the visuals. In the process of being ported to the PC from the original Xbox version, Splinter Cell did lose some visual luster. There were missing graphical effects, shadows that didn't display correctly, or missing shadows altogether. And a lot of this has been restored in the Enhanced patch, with some tweaks here and there to more closely resemble the look and atmosphere of the Xbox original. Now, admittedly, many of these fixes and improvements are minor. A lot of players won't notice. But some are very noticeable, especially when looking at the versions side by side. And this is definitely in the subjective realm, but for me, the work done has improved the atmosphere of this game, made it feel more rich. Shadows in general cast more realistically and appear sharper all around, and the lighting itself has been adjusted in many sections, toned down in some parts where before it was blown out, while in other sections it appears brighter and more vibrant, granting a thicker sense of contrast to the shadows. And that thick, inky contrast is key to the original Splinter Cell, both for its gameplay and mood. Now, a few things to note. The Enhanced team is still working on making tweaks to the lighting, and some missing graphical effects found in the Xbox version are still in the process of being brought over, like the bloom and depth of field effects. And it should also be noted that for those that like to use the PS3 texture pack, that unfortunately isn't incorporated here and can't be installed as it will likely break the tweaked lighting. But I have been told an AI upscale of the original textures is being worked on at the moment.
This is spooky.
What's that?
Grim sticking wires in your head, man.
One bummer is that the cutscenes are still displayed at 640 by 480. I was told by one of the developers that the cutscenes themselves have been upscaled through AI. The problem is getting the game engine to display them at higher resolutions. Hopefully that's something that can be rectified in the future. However, 2 new cutscenes have been added for the 2 cut missions brought back in this patch. More on those later.
We trace the data stream as far as a nuclear power plant called Nadezhda, but we lose it there.
Something I enjoyed quite a bit is that you can now toggle the HUD on and off with the F1 key, which is convenient for me as I can now get some slick looking shots for this video, and cool for those that challenge themselves to play through these HUD-less. And in the Enhance menu, you can now change which suit Sam wears in each mission. So far, you can only choose from the suits that are available in the game, the default suit, Ninja Sam, and Short Sleeve Sam, but it's still phenomenal to have this, and hopefully it will lead to more suits being added in the future. Last thing I want to mention for this part, while I unfortunately don't have the hardware to test this out, the Enhanced patch does make Splinter Cell Steam Deck compatible. Great for those that want to sneak on the go, or sprawled out on their couch. The GitHub page has installation instructions for this as well.
I haven't been in the field in years.
Sure, but tradecraft is something you don't forget. It's like riding a bike.
Or wearing high heels.
Now it's time to get into some of the gameplay tweaks. In the Enhanced tab, you can now toggle the option for Xbox difficulty. Indeed, the PC version of Splinter Cell was made harder compared to the Xbox version, with Sam having significantly less health on all difficulties. Toggling this option brings Sam's HP in line with the values of the Xbox version. Next to that, you have the option to enable checkpoints. Where the PC version always had traditional quick saves, the Xbox version had a checkpoint system which definitely added to the difficulty, as if you failed or died, you had to start from the checkpoint. For those that prefer that experience, you now have the option for it, although quick saves are still enabled no matter what. In terms of controls, Enhance brings controller support. At the moment, only Xbox pads are supported as this version uses Zinput, but it is plug and play ready to go, which is a huge improvement. And there's a few alternate control schemes now. The option for the Pandora Tomorrow layout or the PlayStation layout. Now, I personally prefer playing the original game on mouse and keyboard, which of course you can still do, but for this video I captured everything using my Xbox Series controller, and everything felt good. Played as it should, if you ask me. A few downsides is that vibration is not supported due to the game using direct input, and controller inputs cannot be changed in-game, although you can go into the settings files in the game's directory and change them there if you must. Along with the Xbox difficulty tweaks, Enhanced also introduces a new hardcore difficulty setting called Elite. Similar to the Elite difficulty found in Double Agent, in this mode Sam's health is reduced, he has no starting ammo, and quick saves are disabled. There's even a permadeath option where upon failure, the game will delete your whole profile. And yeah, trying this mode out myself and attempting to ghost through a level quickly humbled me as a Splinter Cell player, and introduced some unexpected issues. Wait, if I don't start with ammo, then I can't shoot out the skylight to clear the smoke. How do I do this? The drawback is that since Splinter Cell wasn't designed for this sort of difficulty, you can run into some unfair moments. But for a player who has mastered this game up and down, it is a fun mode to test their skills, and I'm sure it will make for some good streams. Well, tally-ho! An awesome new add is that anytime during gameplay you can bring up your mission statistics complete with a stealth rating. This rating system works very similar to how it did in Chaos Theory and Double Agent. Detracting points whenever a player is seen, triggers an alarm, or eliminates a guard. It's Kalina Tech, we're having fun. But like Elite mode, the original wasn't really designed for this, and thus I don't think it's possible to 100% every level of this game, at least for the moment. But it's still a cool thing to have, especially for the hardcore crowd that wants to be absolutely sure they ghosted through a level. Ooh baby, 100%! No, wait, don't look at that. Don't look at that.
Then arrest me. I must sleep.
Players now have the option to have thermal vision in all the missions instead of having to wait for it to be unlocked in CIA HQ. The open door stealth option is now listed in the main commands instead of being hidden, which is frankly how it should have been to begin with. I remember pointing this function out in my first Splinter Cell video and getting a lot of comments of people going, "I had no idea you could do that!" And I'm sure I'm gonna get some of those on this video too. Lockpick combinations can now be randomized. I can't say this really changes up the experience all that much. After 20 years of playing this game and its sequels, the lockpicking minigame is basically muscle memory now, regardless of the combination, but an appreciated add nonetheless.
Hello?
And a surprising addition is that Sam can now whistle like he does in the sequels. A fantastic way to distract guards. This was actually something I found myself using a lot more than I thought. Definitely beats hunting down bottles and cans when you have to lure a guard away.
Identify yourself.
And finally, there is now the option to unlock all levels from the beginning, and more specifically, every part of each level. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend this for a first-time player, but for those who have been playing this for years and just want to hop into their favorite mission, or for content creators like me that don't want to have to play through the whole game again to grab specific things, this is a welcome add. Also a good thing to have, seeing as older save files are not compatible with this new version. Something I mentioned in this video's intro is that this patch aims to restore cut content. The Splinter Cell community has long known that the original game had 2 unfinished levels buried in its code: a nuclear power plant, which was later finished for the PlayStation 2 port, and Severonical. I'm just gonna call this map Sever. Accessing these levels before required a trip to the command console, but the patch now makes them accessible in the level select screen, although there is some jank to it at the moment. When I initially tried to load the nuclear power plant, the game crashed on me, and I was told to just spam the enter key after the loading screen to just force the game into it. So there's still some work to be done there in that regard. However, while these maps are still largely unfinished, using temporary assets and missing a lot of music and sound effects, the enhanced patch adds numerous tweaks to make them playable, with the exception of the first part of Sever, which is still broken but largely explorable. For those who have played the PS2 version of the nuclear power plant, they'll find that this early form is essentially the same, just unfinished, missing many of the final textures, weather effects, and polish. But the level is playable from front to back, with a few caveats. While the first part of Sever is very rough and once again only good for exploring, the second part is actually quite polished, with many of its assets looking final. Playing this map, it became clear that many aspects of it were recycled for the Cola Cell bonus mission. The beginning of the second part puts you in the same hall where you capture Philip Mass, and several sections definitely lent some Cola Cell deja vu. In fact, you could think of this map as an alternate version of that level. And although it's quite fun, rough around the edges of course, but there's some interesting stealth puzzles throughout, and the dilapidated snowy visuals of this level feel novel for the game. Ultimately, I am happy these levels weren't wasted and were finished in other versions or incorporated into other missions. However, it would be fun to see them fully finished and operational in the original version of the game, and one of the big goals of the Enhanced Patch team is to do just that. Properly finishing these levels would require a much larger and more intensive effort, which finally brings us to the call for help. The developers of this patch have done a lot of talented work here, putting in the hours to reverse engineer the code to make these improvements. To my layman understanding, this has been an incredibly complex undertaking, which is a big reason it hasn't happened sooner. But the fact of the matter is, their skill sets can only take them so far. According to them, some of the improvements they want to put into the game, like being able to display the cutscenes at higher resolutions and restore the bloom lighting, requires C++ programming knowledge, which they don't have much experience in, and implementing any new art assets is also beyond them. To be specific, implementing sound effects and music into the unfinished levels would require using proprietary audio software from Ubisoft that the team simply doesn't have access to. So beyond that software magically leaking, it could require a reverse engineering effort, which is simply not in their skill sets. This also applies to if they want to add any more quality of life improvements to levels. Unless they get their hands on the version of the Unreal editor used for the original Splinter Cell, they'll have to find other avenues. So if there's anyone watching who can lend their expertise to this project, or at least point in the direction of someone who can, please reach out to the developers on their Discord channel, which I have linked in my description. They are eager to add more people to this team and fully achieve their goals.
I hear something.
For this last section, I want to offer a list of suggestions I would like to see in future updates. Of course, I just got done explaining how the devs need more help to implement more features and fixes, but for funsies, let's pretend they have everything they need and that these suggestions are doable, because I think these would bring the original more in line with its successors, and let players tailor it to be their ideal Splinter Cell experience. I will admit I had to restrain myself from some more fantastical ideas that probably would be too hard to implement, or take away too much from the original experience. Like adding Chaos Theory's Closer Than Ever system. I mean, that would just be way too crazy, right? Right? The first thing I would like to see is the quality of life improvements introduced in the PS2 version and Pandora Tomorrow implemented here too, like having the option for lockpicking in the optic cam to show up in the command menu instead of having to equip them, a counter for the alarms triggered, as well as discovered keypad codes showing up in the info HUD as opposed to having to open up the OPSAT and memorize them. Speaking of the HUD, it would be great to have a high-def version of it as it's still in its low-res state. But going further, it would be really cool if we had the option to switch to alternate HUDs introduced in other versions of the game, like the PS2 and GameCube version, as well as the PS3 remaster. It would also be fun if we had the option to switch to the Pandora Tomorrow HUD, as well as Chaos Theories, although I imagine you'd have to tweak that one a little. But I also wouldn't mind the option for a new limited HUD that was mostly out of the way and gave you the very basics. You see this sort of thing a lot in newer remasters, and I always prefer it. Now, you can turn off parts of the HUD in the enhanced menu, which was great as it let me switch off the intrusive communications box, but it's imperfect at the moment as if I turn off the inventory box, it also eliminates the stealth meter, which I need for gameplay, but a solid feature nonetheless. A tiny thing that would go a long way is the ability to open doors while carrying bodies. This was a great change in later Splinter Cells, and I would be so happy if it was brought to this one. While earlier I mentioned that the cutscenes are still being worked on, it would be great if the cutscenes exclusive to the PS2 version were incorporated too, with the option to switch between them. It would also be awesome if we had the option to switch to the lockpick and keypad graphics found in that version as well. I'm not sure how feasible this is, but I wouldn't mind seeing the EMF vision introduced in Chaos Theory brought into this game. This is really handy not only for spotting electrical devices, but also makes it easier to aim and shoot at them as well, specifically the cameras. I also wonder if it would be possible to bring the alarm state system from Pandora Tomorrow into this, where enemies equip flak jackets and helmets when alarms are triggered, but also where the alarm state lowers over time. This is something that should definitely be optional, as I could see some players wanting to preserve the original experience. But if possible, it would be really fun to see. Or maybe something new that leaned towards the alarm systems of Chaos Theory and Double Agent 2. I am very happy Enhanced Splinter Cell exists. While it is still a work in progress, at this moment I have little issue saying this is the best way to play the original game, at least on PC. Honestly, this is a must download for longtime fans and anyone looking to experience the game for the first time. Even if you're not interested in the enhancements, the fact that it compiles previous must-have fixes makes it more than worth it. My ultimate hope for this patch is that it gets the ball rolling on a larger community effort to remaster and modernize the original Splinter Cell, perhaps to the point where it can be fully reverse engineered and allow for more extensive improvements and customizations, and maybe that could lead to similar efforts on its sequels. That might be optimistic and somewhat naive on my part. It's not lost on me the mountain of work that would require, but then again, these days I am constantly amazed at what a group of talented, passionate gamers can do. I mean, full gaming studios have sprung up from fans simply wanting to make their favorite games playable on modern machines, and the glut of fan-made PC ports coming from decompilation efforts is staggering. And I think that the Splinter Cell franchise is more than deserving for such attention, especially since its publisher keeps twiddling its thumbs with it. If you want to do something right, sometimes you gotta do it yourself. Again, if you want to help with this project, please hit up the developers on their Discord linked below. But that's it for me. What are your thoughts on Splinter Cell Enhanced? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more Splinter Cell content from me, be sure to check out my ongoing Retrospective series. I actually recently completed my video on Conviction, which I think turned out pretty dang good. The links for each installment are down in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.